The church fell silent as Marcus dropped the bride's hand and stepped back, his face twisted in disgust. "I can't do this," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm not marrying someone who looks like that." Sarah felt the world tilt beneath her feet. 200 guests stared as her fiancé, the man she'd trusted with her heart, walked down the aisle and out the door, leaving her standing alone in her grandmother's wedding dress. The white lace suddenly felt heavy, suffocating. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The whispers started immediately, rippling through the pews like poison. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Instead, it became the moment her entire world shattered into pieces, too small to ever put back together. Sarah had met Marcus 18 months earlier at a corporate conference in Dallas. He was charming, successful, and paid attention to her in ways that made her feel seen for the first time in years. She'd spent most of her adult life being invisible, passed over for promotions, ignored in social settings, judged before she even opened her mouth. Her curves, her size, had always defined her in other people's eyes, even when she refused to let them define her own sense of worth. But Marcus had been different, or so she thought. He'd pursued her relentlessly, showing up at her office with coffee, sending thoughtful text messages, planning romantic weekends. When he proposed on a beach in Galveston, she'd actually believed that someone could love her exactly as she was. She'd let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, she deserved the fairy tale too. Now, standing at the altar in front of friends, family, and co-workers, Sarah realized she'd been a fool. Marcus's mother had made comments about her weight throughout the engagement, subtle, digs about wedding dress sizes and photographers' angles. His friends had barely hidden their smirks when Marcus introduced her. But he'd always defended her, or at least she thought he had. Now she understood. He'd been ashamed all along. He'd just hidden it better than the others. Sarah's maid of honor, Jessica, rushed forward and grabbed her arm. "Come on, sweetie. Let's get you out of here." But Sarah's legs wouldn't move. The humiliation was so complete, so devastating, that it pinned her in place. Her father stood in the front pew, his face red with rage and helplessness. Her mother was crying. The pianist didn't know whether to keep playing or stop. Everything was wrong, so terribly wrong, and there was no way to fix it. Then a voice cut through the chaos. "Ma'am, if you're still looking for someone to stand beside you today, I'd be honored." Every head turned toward the back of the church. A man in worn jeans, scuffed boots, and a clean but simple button-down shirt stood in the doorway. He held his cowboy hat in his hands, his weathered face earnest and kind. Sarah recognized him, Jake Peterson, the ranch hand who worked on her uncle's property outside of town. He'd been invited as a courtesy, though she'd barely exchanged 10 words with him at the rehearsal dinner. "I know I'm not dressed for a wedding," Jake continued, walking slowly down the aisle. "And I know we're practically strangers, but no woman deserves to be treated like that, especially not one as brave and beautiful as you clearly are." Sarah's throat tightened. "You don't have to do this." Jake stopped a few feet away, his brown eyes steady and sincere. "I know I don't have to. I want to. Nobody should be made to feel small." "Miss Sarah, and what that coward just did, that says everything about him and nothing about you." The church erupted in murmurs. Sarah's aunt whispered urgently to her uncle. Jessica squeezed Sarah's hand, her eyes wide with surprise. The minister looked utterly bewildered, glancing between Sarah and Jake, as if waiting for someone to explain what was happening. "You're serious?" Sarah managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. "As a heart attack." Jake smiled gently. "Now, I'm not saying we have to make it legal, but if you want to finish this ceremony, have your reception, and show everyone here that you're stronger than that fool ever deserved, I'll stand right here beside you, and I promise, for today at least, you won't be alone." Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. But for the first time since Marcus walked away, they weren't tears of humiliation. They were tears of something else. Gratitude, maybe, or disbelief that a stranger would offer such unexpected kindness when her own fiancé had shown none. "Why would you do this?" she asked. Jake's expression grew serious. "My sister was a bigger girl, beautiful, smart as a whip, with a heart the size of Texas. Her husband left her 3 years into their marriage because he said he couldn't be seen with someone who looked like her. She never recovered from that. Died 2 years ago from a heart attack, But I think the real cause was a broken heart and a broken spirit. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. I couldn't help her. But maybe I can help you not feel what she felt that day. Sarah looked at this stranger, this rough-around-the-edges cowboy who smelled faintly of hay and horses, and made a decision that surprised even herself. If Marcus could walk away from their relationship without a second thought, she could choose to finish this day on her own terms. She could choose dignity over humiliation. Okay, she said, her voice growing stronger. Let's do this. The ceremony that followed was unlike any wedding anyone in that church had ever witnessed. Jake stood beside Sarah, holding her hand with gentle respect, as the minister, after a confused consultation with Sarah's parents, proceeded with a modified version of the service. They didn't exchange rings or say, I do. Instead, Jake made a simple vow that Sarah would never forget. I promise that today, you're valued, you're respected, and you're not alone. And I promise that there are people in this world who will see you for who you really are, not just what you look like. Sarah found herself smiling through her tears. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me. At the reception that followed, something magical happened. Instead of whispers and pity, Sarah's guests rallied around her with fierce support. Her father gave a toast thanking Jake for his true cowboy honor and condemning Marcus's cowardice. Her friends danced with her, celebrating not a marriage but survival and strength. Jake stayed by her side the entire evening, making sure she was never alone, never uncomfortable, and always reminded that this day, despite its horrible beginning, belonged to her. As the evening wound down, Sarah found herself sitting with Jake on the venue's back porch, watching the Texas sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I don't know how I'll ever repay you for what you did today, she said softly. Jake shook his head. You don't owe me anything, Miss Sarah. You just keep being yourself. Don't let what happened today make you smaller or meaner or less trusting. The world needs people like you, people who believe in love enough to risk everything for it. I don't know if I can believe in it anymore, Sarah admitted. You will, Jake said with quiet confidence. Maybe not tomorrow or next month, but you will. Because people like you, people with real courage, they don't stay broken forever. They heal, they grow, and they find something better than what they lost. 6 months later, Sarah received an invitation in the mail. It was Jake's wedding. He'd reconnected with his high school sweetheart, a widow who'd recently moved back to town. Sarah attended the ceremony with genuine joy, watching this kind stranger marry someone who clearly adored him. As for Marcus, Sarah heard through mutual friends that he'd gotten engaged again to a woman his mother approved of. Sarah felt nothing when she heard the news. No anger, no jealousy, not even satisfaction. She'd moved on to a bigger life, a better job, and a growing sense that her worth had never been tied to someone else's opinion of her body. The day the groom refused to marry her was still the worst day of Sarah's life. But it was also the day she learned that humanity and kindness could come from the most unexpected places. From a cowboy in worn boots who saw her not as a size or a number, but as a person deserving of dignity and respect. And that lesson proved more valuable than any wedding ring ever could have been.